unanimously in both houses. The intent of this bill all along has been to close the prevention gap of the 2002 statute, something that our colleague, Senator Kyl, said at that time. He talked about back then, and he was right when he made the statement. Since that time, the nature of the threat has changed, and that much greater threat is now homegrown terrorists like Memphian Carlos Bledsoe. This bill is very timely in view of the fact that in August of 2010, background report showed 21 U.S. citizens were charged in terrorist cases in 2009. And another 20 were charged in 2010 between January and August. Since 9/11, more than 180 Americans have been charged under anti-terrorism statutes in bomb plots and providing material support to terrorist groups. Even though federal law enforcement typically investigates and prosecutes these cases, they have put significant resources into establishing such efforts as Joint Terrorism Task Force because they cannot do this work without the help from local and state law enforcement officials. Just recently, Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano stated within the last month she has called out on states to become even more active and engaged in counterterrorism measures. This bill has been amended as follows. There is no state designation process. We expressly defer to the designation of terrorist entities made by the U.S. Secretary of State and the Department of the Treasury. The bill clearly states that it does not apply to peaceful practice of any religion whatsoever. It updates the definition of our existing statute to be consistent with the federal definitions, including the definition of material support. It makes the provision of material support to a federally designated entity that, when done by the actual knowledge of the designation, constitutes a Class A felony. The Bankers Association right here in Tennessee has reviewed the bill, and they're fine with it since it does not alter their reporting obligations, which are established by federal law and are already part of our existing statute. We've heard this bill is projected to cost the state some money because the fiscal note is very small. And the inference is that if it doesn't cost anything, then it won't accomplish our purpose of preventing terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, that is simply not true. I would imagine that if such a bill was introduced in early 2001, maybe the federal government or the legislatures in Pennsylvania, the legislatures in New York, the legislature or the federal government in Washington, D.C. might have also prepared a similar fiscal analysis of a bill like the one that we are about to vote on today. Obviously and admittedly, our government was not prepared to address terrorism or the material support of terrorism, which is what we are addressing here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what comes tomorrow. But I hope and pray that we don't have to spend one penny on a fiscal note to incarcerate anybody because we're taking the steps here today to send the signal that we will prosecute you to the highest available statute in our state, a Class A felony. But ladies and gentlemen, we can't refute evidence that there are activities of concern regarding terrorism in our state. We see that Carlos Bledsoe, who killed a 24-year-old soldier in Arkansas and paralyzed another young soldier, who was only 18 years of age, and Khalid Al-Dwasari, who studied at a local university right here in Nashville and went on to be arrested in another state in this past February for plotting to bomb several government-related targets, just to name a couple. We can no longer pretend that homegrown terrorism is only a problem beyond our borders of these United States, nor beyond the borders of just Tennessee. It's right here, homegrown. The 9/11 attack turned a new page in our nation's history and also in the history of our great state. We live in a new age of threat right here on our own soil. We have men and women dying today in other parts of the world to preserve the freedoms that we have long loved in our state. All levels of government, national, state, and local, must be part of this effort. The goal of this legislation is never again to face the question that we face in 9/11. Couldn't we have done something to prevent this? Ladies and gentlemen, there is no prosperity without security. We, as elected leaders in this state, have to be right all of the time with respect to homegrown terrorists, while the terrorists only have to be right one time. So if we act in prevention, this will help protect the citizens of this great state here in Tennessee. I'd like to renew my motion, Mr. Speaker, on House Bill 1350 on third and final consideration for passage.
Senator Cantor moves passage of House Bill 1353 on third and final consideration. That's seconded. Senator Merrow, you seek recognition as well as Senator Henry. We've got 3 amendments to go on. Do you want to seek now or wait till the amendments go on? Okay, Mr. Clerk, amendments?
Amendment number 1 by the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Chairman Beavers.
Move adoption and yield to the sponsor for an explanation.
Senator Beavers moves adoption. Amendment number 1, committee amendment, timely filed. Senator Ketron, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment that was accepted in Judiciary is what I've just explained. All the sections, everything has been taken out of the section. We no longer have the designations. The governor, the Attorney General is no longer in Section B of the bill. It takes it from a Class B to a Class A. In essence, I've already discussed that.
For amendment number 1, we'll do a voice vote. Those in favor, Senator Kelsey, you seek recognition. Senator Kelsey, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the sponsor please explain how this is different from the Senate Finance Committee amendment?
Senator Ketron.
This one and the next one. That's what. That is the Senator Kelsey. That is the one from Finance that was adopted.
Actually, I think Judiciary 1 and 2 are rolled into Finance 3. So you probably roll 1 behind 2, 2 behind 3, withdraw those. And if it's in Finance Committee, I think is what actually makes the bill.
Okay.
So without Senator Beavers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move Senate Amendment 1 behind Senate Amendment 3.
No objection. Behind 3, Mr. Clerk.
Amendment number 2 by the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Senator Beavers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 behind 3.
No objection. 2 behind 3, Mr. Clerk.
Amendment number 3 by the Senate Finance, Ways and Means Committee.
Chairman McNally, you're recognized.
Thank you. This deletes the original bill. It defines a designated entity, and I'll move passage and yield to Senator
McNally, it is in the House bill. It is in the House bill.
Well, in that case, I'll withdraw.
Without objection. Withdraw. Senator Beavers, well, Mr. Clerk.
Speaker, we're back on amendment number 1, Senate Judiciary, amendment number 1.
Senator Beavers.
Is that in the House bill?
It's in a, yeah, well, yes.
Move to withdraw.
Am I right, Mr. It is. Senator Ketron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe Senator Beavers needs to withdraw.
Right.
That's in the House bill.
Okay. Since you moved withdrawal without objection.
It's in the finance bill.
But it's in the,
Number 3.
actually, since the way I understand it, said 1 and 2 is in 3, and 3 was in the House bill. Therefore, all 3 of them are in the House bill. Correct. So Senator Beavers moves to withdraw without objection. Withdrawn, Mr. Clerk.
Amendment number 2, Senate Judiciary Committee amendment.
Beavers.
Move to withdraw.
Objection, withdrawn. Senator Marrero, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really rise in opposition to this bill because of, first of all, its origin, and because of the specific references that have been made only to Muslims in all the examples that were made about terrorism. And in the first place, we had, in my community in the West Memphis area right across from me, 2 law enforcement officers who were murdered by anti-government homegrown terrorists that were, I believe, probably of a basic Christian religion, although I can't imagine anyone of a basic Christian religion or any other religion that thinks it's perfectly acceptable to murder people. But we did have people who came out of a car and murdered 2 law enforcement officers in West Memphis. I hesitate to mention Oklahoma City because I'm sure everyone remembers as homegrown terrorist Mr. McVeigh, but there are many anti-government organizations, and I feel like because so many references have been made to the Muslim community, that this has been something that they are very sensitive to. And I'm very concerned of the fact that we are demonizing certain people or putting a stigma on certain people because of their religion. And because I believe so strongly that America is a place where people came for freedom of religion, I really want to speak up for people who feel like they're being persecuted because of their religious beliefs. And I want to speak up for all of my Muslim brothers and sisters who are wonderful law-abiding citizens and that I'm proud live in my community. So I'm in opposition to this bill because I feel like they have been unnecessarily demonized by it.
Senator Henry, Senator Marrero, if you want to respond, Senator Ketter would like to respond to Senator Marrero, then Senator Henry, then Senator Campfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Marrero, this bill, I know there were some words of Sharia, Muslims, et cetera. This bill, as amended, has nothing to do with that. None of the words are even mentioned in the bill. As I stated in my second bullet point, the bill clearly states that it does not apply to the peaceful practice of any religion. It takes the bill that was passed here in 2002, strengthens it from a B to an A, felony. It is designed exactly for what you were speaking of the Oklahoma with Timothy McVeigh when he blew up the federal building. It speaks to the gentleman in North Carolina who blew up the abortion clinic in North Carolina. But in both of those cases, Senator Marrero, both were caught by local law enforcement, not FBI sitting back thinking there was something going on. It was in Oklahoma. Timothy McVeigh was caught by a local law enforcement officer who saw him driving without a license tag on the truck. And the gentleman in North Carolina was caught by a rookie policeman on the beat in the parking lot who caught that gentleman who was a terrorist. So this applies to every homegrown terrorist in our country. So the word Sharia, the word Muslim, it has nothing to do with religion at all, but it just strengthens our statute of 2002.
Senator Marrero.
I understand that the way the bill has come down, that a lot of that offensive language has been removed from it. I'm just saying that unfortunately the examples that you have given here today have all been Muslims, and until we began mentioning people who were not Muslims. So I'm just saying that there are people in our communities that may be bigoted. And we certainly don't want to do anything to encourage bigoted people to take advantage of a people because of a religious difference. And I'm just very concerned because the Muslim members of my community have expressed to me that they feel like that they have been persecuted and people have held against them words that have been uttered around the Senate, and I'm very sorry that that has happened to people that I consider to be very good citizens in my community.
Henry?
Thank you, sir. Well, the gentleman says I voted for his earlier bill. I'm sure I did. I kind of remember the occasion. I saw on television that they'd blown up those bills in New York, and I went down and opened up the Finance Committee the next morning. Nancy said to me, "Look, look, look." I said, "Yeah, I saw it." But I wasn't surprised. I've been looking for it for years and years and years. Any of you who've been following world affairs, but the same thing. So that hasn't been a watershed. I never have perceived it that way. But about this bill, I kind of I think about it from a job standpoint, really. Now, the bill began with mention of Muslims and Sharia. I understand it's been taken out. That's the way it began. And that's the way it was publicized, and it continues to be publicized. The bill originated in that manner. Now, Senator Harper's got thousands of Kurds and thousands of Somalis in her district. They're all Muslims. None of them blown up anything to my knowledge. Now, that's not to say they're saints. Some of them have done a little shooting, some have done a little drinking, some have wrecked a few cars, but they haven't blown anything up. Well, Mr. Speaker, when we file and seriously debate a bill in the Tennessee legislature that starts off having pointed out Muslims and pointed out their religious law, the press picks that up, not just in Tennessee, but around the world. So I don't think about this bill like Senator Brero does. She's a very warm-hearted lady, and I admire her for that. But I think about this bill from the standpoint of Tennesseans who stand to earn some wages and salaries from companies who look at operations like this bill, say, now, is that the kind of place where we want to go, where people consider legislation of that kind? Now, the gentleman says he hopes if this passes, none of these folks commit this offense. Well, of course, we all do. I have a hard time seeing it as a serious matter like he does. I reckon that's a problem. The people in New York, a target city if there ever were one of this kind of activity, 1,500 miles from here. Pennsylvania about the same, Northern Virginia not too far from the same. That's where these folks are going to go if they're going to blow anything up. They're going to go to the cities that the world looks at, like those big cities. For us in Tennessee to file a bill and debate it, pointing out Muslims and Sharia law, I think makes us look like we're taking aim at those folks because we need somebody to take aim at. I don't think that's good for business in Tennessee, and I respectfully oppose the bill.
I have Senator Campfield and Senator Kyle. Senator Campfield.
Thank you. As many of you know, I did not support this bill in its original form, nor did I support it in its second incarnation. I felt it created new state government agencies, had little oversight, and did little that the U.S. government wasn't supposed to be doing or had been doing already. I felt it could have led to targeting of groups that may not be guilty, but only unpopular at this time. And I said, as they may come out for the Muslims today, they could come for the Tea Party tomorrow or the Republicans the next day, or the Democrats the day after that, and therefore I voted against this bill in committee. But, and it's a big but, since that time, the sponsor has made some changes, to my understanding, that only increase the penalties on laws that currently are in effect and do not create new government agencies that have limited oversight and power to do damage to people who I think may be peacefully practicing their religion. I don't vote on examples. I vote on laws. And the law I see in front of me, as amended, is good, and therefore I am going to be supporting this legislation this time around, and I thank the sponsor for working so hard to make it something that is acceptable. Thank you.
Just very briefly, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. In its own way, this bill is a testament to the legislative process we have in Tennessee, because we started out with one thing that really was quite the thing, quite the piece of legislation, and we've ended up with another. But I'm not going to vote for this bill. I'm going to tell you why. If you can vote for this bill, you're not going to vote for this bill. This can be law. It cannot be law. But I'll tell you, today in Tennessee, it is against the law to assist somebody who's trying to hurt somebody. It is against the law in Tennessee to assist someone hurting somebody. And it's against the law in Tennessee to aid and abet somebody who has hurt somebody. So I would say to you, we're not adding anything other than just a statement that we don't like this type of activity. And in 2002, I voted to tell folks I didn't like that type of activity. That being said, I'm just not going to vote to say I did something when I don't think I'm doing anything. Thank you.
So objection, put in question. Senator Roberts, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to make a brief comment that I appreciate the process that this legislation has gone through. It got off to a very interesting start and to a tremendous amount of public outcry, but I commend the sponsor for sticking with this legislation, for listening to what people had to say, to improving the legislation. I think at this point in time it's good legislation. It gives our agents, our officers, and our prosecutors the tools that they need to do the job in front of them, and I would like to be a sponsor on this legislation. I will be voting for it. Thank you.
No objection. Senator Roberts' name is added. If there's no objection, put in question. I will. And like Senator Kenton and close, Senator Somerville, you'd like to be added. Okay, if you'd like to be added. Objection to question. See none, the question is put. Senator Kenton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, yes, this bill has taken, since February, it has taken a long road. My sponsor and I met with members of the Muslim community from Tullahoma, from Murfreesboro, from right here in Nashville on several occasions. As we talked, they talked about the bigoted terms. They talked about the concerns that they had. We told them that that was not the intent to keep them from worshiping in any manner. I firmly, personally believe in the Constitution of what our forefathers brought to us. I feel that anyone has the right to worship their God in any way they see fit, and that's what I told them from the very beginning. We met with them a second time. We told them that we would be amending that language, the offensive language, out. But the news media took it even further than what was in the bill. They're the ones that created the issues that went around the globe. It went from the Tennessean to the USA Today to the Washington Post, and then later to Al Jazeera, was sitting right behind the glass here on one occasion, because they said that the bill, actually the original bill, had it where they could, ladies of the Muslim faith could not wear a burqa and would be arrested. That's only in France. They said the original bill had wording in it that they would be, they could not wash their feet 5 times a day before they worshiped. That was never in the bill. That was bad journalism that portrayed the state of Tennessee and the bill that was put never before. was that an issue. Now, we talk about things happening only in the big city of New York. Right here, this comes from this is dated April 12th, 2011. Out of Virginia, a Virginia man sentenced to 23 years of metro bombing plot. Farquhar Ahmed, 35, of Ashburn, Virginia. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Ashburn, Virginia, but it's nowhere close to the size of Nashville. He pleaded guilty to charges of attempting to provide material support to a designated terrorist organization and collecting information to assist in planning a terrorist attack on a transit facility. Mr. Ahmed today admitted he was determined to kill as many people as possible through multiple bombings at the heart of the nation's capital. Daily News Journal, Saturday, February 26th. Saudi man planned attack for years, prosecutors say. Lubbock, Texas. Moved by 9/11 and the speeches of Osama bin Laden, Khalid Adwad-Sari for years had secured plans and launched a terrorist attack in the U.S. prosecutors, what they allege. Ahmed was quoted as being a quiet man. He was thought to be a good guy, a senior at Tennessee State University, who also from Saudi Arabia and met with Mr. Adwad-Sari in Nashville when Adwad-Sari was studying at an English language center at Vanderbilt University. He later purchased from Carolina Biological Supply Company in Burlington, North Carolina. It resulted in the FBI getting connected with him and then was later arrested in Lubbock, Texas. Right here in Nashville, Tennessee was the connection. I stand here before you, ladies and gentlemen, and tell you that homegrown terrorism, no matter what faith, it could be skinheads, it could be KKK, it could be Muslims, it doesn't matter. We have to step up. And in the contrary, that it does more than what was just quoted. It takes it from a Class B to a Class A felony, the strongest felony that we have in our statute. I renew my motion.
Good. Catch is closed. We're on the board. Those for passage of House Bill 1353 on third and final consideration, but aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Every member voted. Mr. Clerk, take a vote.
Aye. 26, 3 nays.
House Bill 1353, having received a constitutional majority, hereby declared passed. No objection. Motion to reconsider goes to the table.